Hello, everyone. I'm showing about 10 minutes till the top of the hour. Thanks to those of you who have gotten here a little early to get a good seat. You're in for a great story today. Go ahead and grab yourself your favorite beverage, get ready to get comfortable, and we will get started at the top of the hour. Thanks for being here. Hello, good afternoon. It's about 12:55 Pacific time. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We will begin at the top of the hour. To open your chat window, click on the bottom toolbar at the lower end of your screen, and that chat icon will launch the chat. We do encourage you at this time to say hello and chat with other participants while we're waiting to begin. Be sure that your chat is set to everyone so we can all see it. Tell us about where you're at. I know there's some weather going through the country right now. Feel free to chat about that or anything else that you would like to discuss with your colleagues while we wait to start at the top of the hour. As a quick announcement, as indicated in the registration for this gathering, by attending the Zoom webinar, you acknowledge that this session will be recorded and may be used for future UAGC presentations. Welcome. Grab a cup of tea, water, or your beverage of choice, and our story will begin soon. Hello, I am showing the top of the hour. Dr. Metz, if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Before we begin, as indicated in the registration for this gathering, by attending the Zoom webinar, you acknowledge that this session will be recorded and may be used for future UAGC presentations. Welcome. We know you have many, many choices when selecting your professional development activities, and there are some really amazing opportunities here at the University of Arizona Global Campus and beyond. We're happy that you chose to join us today as the UAGC Department of Education and Liberal Arts proudly presents to you Ed Talks. I'm Dr. Jessie Upshaw, and I'm honored to lead the Professional Development Committee of the Department of Education and Liberal Arts here in the UAGC College of Arts and Sciences, and I'll be your host this afternoon. Today, we continue our 10th annual Ed Talks series with our third session. For those of you that are new to Ed Talks, this is not your traditional professional development webinar. Ed Talks are fashioned after TED Talks, the ever-popular way of sharing concepts through personal storytelling. While many, if not all, of the personal stories of our Ed Talkers throughout the 10 years tend to bring forward some emotions, as we sometimes laugh, smile, cry, or feel empathy in a strong way, for this session, we want to let you know that the story you are about to listen to can include some sensitive content that some individuals may find difficult to listen to. Our 2024 Ed Talk series is entitled Flourishing in Open Access Education, which examines supporting students and colleagues in open access environments through the lens of positive psychology. Each story takes the work of Martin Seligman's Flourish, a visionary new understanding of happiness and well-being, and considers the relationship between well-being and the contemporary culture of open access or open enrollment higher education. Here to explore and extend our journey towards supporting well-being with her story of drugs and therapy unveiled is Dr. Kara Metz. As you listen to Kara's story, you might listen for your call to action to share your practices that promote growth and supporting well-being in your classroom and your interactions with your students and your colleagues. Or perhaps you'll find a new practice that her story or our discussion sparks for you. Kara, will you come on and say hello as I introduce you?
Hello, everyone. Happy Pi Day.
Yay! Dr. Kara Metz is a professor at UAGC and has been a part of the university system since 2017. She received a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling and a doctorate in counselor education and supervision from the University of Cincinnati. She also holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and economics from Ohio University. Dr. Metz has been a licensed professional counselor since 2006 and has worked in an elementary school, community mental health, as well as private practice, seeing clients from 6 to 80, favoring working with transitional age youth from 14 to 22. In 2013, she moved into teaching full-time, working with master's and doctoral level students studying counseling. She's currently serving as the program chair of the BA Health and Human Services program, and Dr. Metz is the co-chair of the Faculty Council here at UAGC, chairs Faculty Wellness and Associate Faculty Engagement Committees, is on the IRB, serves as the faculty advisor for Tau Epsilon Alpha Human Service Honor Society, and is on the faculty advisory board of the Psych Club. Outside her faculty work, which you can see is extensive, Kara serves as the executive board and board of directors of the National Organization of Human Services and is the chair of the executive board for Tau Epsilon Alpha. She recently published a book she co-edited called Balance and Boundaries in Creating Meaningful Relationships in Online Education. And finally, starting next week, she'll launch starting next week, she'll launch her new small private counseling practice, A Wellness State of Mind. A fun fact about Kara, while snorkeling in the ocean, she went swimming with sharks, eagle rays, barracudas, and sea turtles, and even had a chance to pet a wild sea turtle. We are so grateful to have you here today with us, Kara. Thank you so much for being here. And I am now going to ask that we remove our videos so we can get started after a few brief reminders. As a reminder, Ed Talks are fashioned after TED Talks, the ever-popular way of sharing personal stories for only 18 minutes of monologue. We do this because we want to hear your stories, and we can best do that by sharing our stories. Our goal here is not necessarily to teach you anything new, as you are already an expert in your field. Our goal is to perhaps motivate you to try something new in your approach to helping your students succeed. Our storytelling approach is geared to not take a lot of your time, but rather to simply set the stage for an interactive conversation and perhaps encourage you to encourage your students in some new way. As I mentioned in the beginning of our time, our 2024 Ed Talk series, Reflection and Extension, is inspired by the principles and work of Martin Seligman in his book Flourish, a visionary new understanding of happiness and well-being. At the end of our Ed Talk today, we look forward to hearing your story of what you're doing or will do in your classroom or educational setting. After Dr. Metz's story, we will invite all participants to share your reflection and practices. So with that said, audience members, if you could please hold your comments and chat to the end as we listen to Kara's story. With that, let's get started. Kara, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Jessie. I am a keeper of secrets. I am a safe space. I hold a space to explore your feelings, both positive and those deep, dark feelings that you feel you cannot share with anyone else. I am a counselor. I have been told that with my great counseling skills, I must have perfect relationships. I have been told that I am a guardian angel. In reality, I have the easy job. My clients have the hard job. My clients have to use what they learn and put it in place in their lives. What does a counselor do? I am empathetic. I believe in my clients and their capabilities to reach their goals, and I help clients explore their options and strengths. I do not judge, and I do not give advice. As a counselor, I do not ask what is wrong and how to fix it. I ask what your goal is, what your ideal self looks like, and how you use your strengths to meet your goal. I see the value in medication and theories like cognitive behavioral therapy and solution-focused therapy, but sometimes these methods don't resolve all problems. It is my belief, though, that sometimes you have to find the root, find your resilience and strengths, and strive towards your ideal self, not just fixing symptoms. Without realizing it, many of my counseling core beliefs align with positive psychology. Positive psychology is understanding what makes life worth living. It focuses on strengths, not what is wrong. I've helped many people with this philosophy, but as I'm a keeper of secrets, I cannot tell you about those times. Let me tell you about me, my personal exploration that allows me to be here today in this position to tell you my story. Are you a medical model thinker or a strength-based thinker? What strengths might have come out of times when you've struggled? And how can we help students find strengths even in time of struggle? As I tell you my story, I want you to think about the questions I just asked. What are your immediate reactions? And what might change when you hear my story? Remember, our first reactions, our first thoughts, are not our final thoughts and reactions. We might have reactions, but that does not reflect what we can do. Picture it, Denver, 2013. Almost a decade into practicing counseling, my husband took a job that moved us from Ohio to Colorado. I loved counseling, but I graduated the year before with my doctorate, and I decided to break out of my comfort zone and apply for jobs as a counselor educator in Colorado. 1 month before I was set to move, I was hired on the spot as an assistant professor for a master's and doctoral counseling program. It was my dream. My program chair stated it was fortuitous. It was meant to be. At first, I loved it. I enjoyed preparing for classes, meeting with students, and being on the other side of the dissertation process. After several months, though, I started to doubt my abilities. My brain would constantly tell me that this was all a fluke and that my program chair was going to find out about my not being qualified. I would have panic symptoms like trouble breathing. I struggled to sleep. If I had class that day, I would stay up, going over every single thing that I said and pointing out how unintelligent I sounded, chastise myself for stumbling over words, or I would ask myself, why would you say something that way? I didn't think I was qualified, that I knew enough, or that people would respect what I had to say. Would they find me credible? Throughout my life, I had found that my youthful appearance and femaleness worked against me. Respect and faith that I was good at what I do has never been automatic. I don't doubt that I would have to work extra hard to earn respect from students who are my age and older. I had imposter syndrome. It got to the point where I could not stand it anymore. I did what any good counselor would do. I went to a psychiatrist for medication. Counselors are not always the best at seeking their own counseling. Do you know what happened? I slept better, and I didn't go over everything I said to the class at night. I didn't have panic symptoms. I didn't feel like every time I walked on campus, I was going to be fired. It sounds like this should be the end of my story, but it is not, because something was still missing. Sure, my symptoms were gone, but in my case, the symptoms were not the root of the problem. Medication made it possible for me to go through my day without overwhelming anxiety. Medication helped me feel safe to look more at my problem. What I wanted was to feel confident. I wanted to feel like I was a good educator and that I had knowledge to provide. For that, I needed to dig deeper. I began to ask myself what I might do if I were my own client. Now, I know some of the root causes of my issues. Confidence has never been a strong suit. That is also paired with my repulsion to getting in trouble and lack of perfectionism. Confidence can be traced back starting in 6th grade. I entered 6th grade happy. I was carefree, ready to learn, and excited for a new school year to be with my friends. I had my own personality and style. I was smart and very sensitive. I had energy and passion. Being unique in the 6th grade, though, didn't agree with the 6th graders on my bus. Kids made up negative songs about me, put signs on my back in the morning, and put gum in my hair. I was bullied. Being mistreated by peers happened throughout school, even into graduate school. In my doctoral program, I came from a program where in our classes, the students worked together with community members to solve problems and improve the community. We found cohesion and synergy in working together. I had to take a year-long series of classes that included several doctoral programs where some of the students came from more competitive programs. As I struggled to understand some concepts and had to give presentations on those subjects, 2 of the students laughed, made comments, and rolled their eyes. I was told by the professor that I needed to have thicker skin and that I was in the wrong for feeling hurt. The other students were okay in their reactions, and she would not ask them to stop. Instead of focusing on what contributed to my imposter syndrome, I decided to go in another direction. One of my favorite statements to make to clients is, tell me a time in your life when you felt similarly and overcame it. My mind went to 7th grade. My best friend ran track, so I decided I might try it too. I tried out sprinting, and I was pretty terrible at it. I often came in last. I didn't enjoy that. What I did enjoy, though, was running. When we had warm-ups, I remember feeling like I could run forever. In the fall of 8th grade, I joined the cross-country team. It turns out I have 1 speed, which is pretty slow when sprinting, but when distance running, it was pretty okay. I wasn't winning any races, but I held my own and made the varsity team. I was able to take a situation that I felt like I was failing and turn it into something I felt good about. I looked at my strengths. I found a way to feel successful with something I enjoyed. I never gave up. I had the strength of tenacity. I started college at Ohio University. I wanted to be a physical therapist. I started out as a pre-med zoology major. I entered into my first biology and chemistry courses. I struggled a lot, and I did not enjoy the material. My grades were low B's and C's in those courses. I went to all of the tutoring sessions, and every Thursday, my classmate and I would stay up all night to study for a 5-question quiz in biology. Chemistry required the same amount of effort. I felt okay, but whenever a test happened, I did not do well. My faculty advisor said I needed to work on getting my GPA up if I wanted to be successful. I almost cried because I was working so hard and I hated every minute of it. Later that year, I took an intro to psychology course. They taught me how to study, and I loved what I was learning. Studying never felt like a chore, and I looked forward to reviewing for tests. It wasn't that I could not succeed in college, but I had to find what the right fit was for me. From a medical model, seeing my low grades, I might be asked to try harder, study more, or even asked if college was right for me. Even though the first year was discouraging, I looked at my strengths to help me succeed. I found a way to feel successful. I found the strength of passion. During my sophomore year in college, I had 2 presentations to give as a part of my final assignments for 2 classes. The first class was art, where I compared 2 forms of art, and the other was a research course where I did a mini thesis study. Art class was my first presentation. I got about halfway through and froze. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I was sweating. My heart was pounding, and I could feel the tears welling up. I was having my first panic attack. I never finished my presentation. I started to worry that my next presentation later that week would end in the same way. I visited my instructor and talked about my fears, and he encouraged me to be authentic and to practice. I created a presentation that felt like me. It was humorous and entertaining, but it also demonstrated my research. I wrote a script and practiced it about 10 times. I created notes on my PowerPoint. When I got to the presentation, though, I couldn't see the notes I made. I felt my body starting to get shaky. I made it all the way through, though. I found success. I took a situation where I could not even finish and used my strengths to overcome. My takeaway strength here was authenticity. From a medical model, the focus might have been more on my panic attacks and how to stop them when I feel them coming on. In my master's program, the second year, I was taking 4 classes, working, and completing a 20-hour-a-week internship. It was my first week out on my own counseling. I wasn't oriented in all the details of the agency, so I often had these sticky notes about how everything I was doing was wrong. I also had some clients who had some pretty severe mental health issues, and they weighed heavily on me, and I felt overwhelmed. My boss from my paid position had left me a message to call her back earlier that day. I had no idea why she would call me, and I worried all day. At the end of the day, when I called her back, she told me that one of my coworkers died on the way to work in a car accident. I broke. It was too much for me. I didn't think I could handle it all. I don't know how else to describe it, but my brain felt strange. Something wasn't right. I went to spend the weekend with my parents. A bit of background, my grandmother was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Well, actually, they called it clinically crazy. Mental health has come a long way. My mom would tell me stories about her creeping up the stairs at night with a butcher knife, or telling her about strange premonitions she had that my mom was going to die. My greatest fear as a child was, aside from getting in trouble, was being diagnosed with schizophrenia. My views have changed on this fear, but it was very real growing up. And that weekend, I thought I was going to have my first psychotic break. Taking time away and time to talk to someone, I felt better. I researched death and the grief process to understand what I was struggling with. I brought up my concerns in my internship class. I worked on taking better care of myself, making time for myself, arranging my schedule for self-care between sessions. I learned how to not take clients home with me in my head. I changed how I functioned so that I was a priority. I found out that I was not alone in how I felt. I found balance. I took a moment where I did not believe that I could move forward and found a way to feel successful. Resilience, self-care, and education had become strengths. Back to 2013, I was reminded that in the face of feeling like I cannot do something, I have always found a way to turn the situation around, look for my strengths, and feel successful. My strengths of tenacity, passion, genuineness, education, and self-care have seen me through in my life. I began to reframe my thoughts, put myself into my teaching philosophy instead of putting my teaching philosophy in myself, and allowed my passions to show through. I became more confident, which in turn improved my ability to teach and connect with students. Now, my dirty little secret is that I still take anti-anxiety medicine. My body loves to overreact, so they help me go about my day. Seligman, in his book Flourish, talks about how medication can help people overcome the internal disabling conditions of life. I have to agree, mental health symptoms can be pretty paralyzing. He then talks about how once the disabling condition is removed, we need to build enabling conditions like positive emotion, meaning, accomplishment, and positive relationships. I found as I moved through my life, those tough times, those stumbles, brought about a lot of strength, allowed me to feel accomplished, and helped me make meaning in times that I struggled. Now, I just shared pieces of my life with you that I don't often talk about. Now think about your story. More importantly, your student story. The reason I told these stories is because I have been a student in need of something, not a person who needed to be fixed. What I needed was someone to notice my struggle, someone to empathize, and someone to encourage me. How many of your students need that? How many of your students have not experienced that? In class, I take this concept of positive psychology to bring out the positives, even when students feel like they are struggling. I might reply to an email starting with saying, "You are here today, you are struggling, but you reached out. That demonstrates how dedicated of a student you are. I am proud of you." I hold space for students and let them know it is okay to struggle. I empathize when times get tough. I try to focus on how students get to their goals instead of asking how to fix what is wrong. To reflect on Debbie's talk last month, I grade with gratitude. Our students are non-traditional. They often have a lot of life experiences. They are juggling multiple roles. They've been out of school for a while and often are taking care of others. I understand that my class is not the only thing the client might be, or the student might be struggling with. And I work with students who are pushing through despite dealing with heavy mental loads. We don't diagnose our students, but we can understand the impact mental health might have. We can understand that our students are going to do the best they can with what they have, and we can work with our students to bring out their strengths to help them succeed. In the beginning, I presented 3 questions. I asked whether you view things through the medical model or a strength-based model. A medical model would have taken my experiences and looked at my anxiety and how I could decrease my anxiety. It would look at what was wrong with me and how I could fix it. A strengths-based model, a positive psychology viewpoint, would instead look at my desire to feel confident in my teaching and be supportive of my students and look what I already have inside of me to help me feel successful, self-confident, and hopeful. Now I have shared my dirty little secret about meds and struggling with anxiety. And I say dirty little secret, but it shouldn't be. Think about your students who have not always shared with you their struggles, their dirty little secrets. It's only a dirty secret if we make someone feel like it is. As faculty members, we might not know our students' circumstances. I hope that you can see a struggling student and end on the thought, not of what is wrong with them and how to fix it, but instead bring out the strengths you see that can help the student find their success and help them continue to build upon those positives. Our journeys are all different. Even if they look similar, we all handle things differently. It's important to be able to put yourself in the shoes of your student and not compare journeys. In true positive psychology fashion, I want to emphasize that if your immediate reaction is not to focus on strengths, that's okay. We are human. We're allowed to have reactions. In fact, we need to get them out. What shows true strength is the ability to step away, take a breath, and refocus. Remember, as educators, we have the easy part. Our students have the hard part. Thank you. Back to you, Jessie.
I'm going to take a minute to let that sink in, especially that last line, Dr. Metz. We have the easy part. Our students have the hard part. Kara, thank you so much for your personal and professional vulnerability. Sharing the story, you set the stage for us, just to support our students, reminding us that their journeys and experiences are those that we don't see. And even when supports may be in place, we may need to dig a little bit deeper to meet students where they are to support those areas we might not be able to control. Reminding us to focus on goals and support rather than trying to fix when supports are needed. Considering that positive psychology model, that strengths-based model from Seligman to support well-being in the classroom, it inspires me personally to self-reflect and support our students and each other, not knowing the journeys that we're on, focusing on strengths and supports. For those of you here today, as we open up the chat lines, and I see it's already coming through, please consider your takeaways from today's story. Let's frame our discussion. What are you currently doing in your practice to support student success, and what are you inspired to do next? I will read the questions from the screen one more time for those of you here for you to consider as we reflect on our own practice. Are you a medical model thinker or a strengths-based thinker? What strengths have come out of times when you have struggled? How can we help students find strengths, even in times of struggle? Time for some vulnerability in the chat if you're comfortable, and if not, you just go ahead and sit back and reflect. Please do start sharing your impressions and your ideas and perhaps your new approach in the chat, and be sure your chat is set to everyone so that we can all see it. We would also love to hear from you. To share with us using your audio, simply raise your hand using the hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be given the opportunity to unmute your microphone and share your story or reflection that way. And as the conversation has already started, let's go ahead and dig in. I'm seeing lots and lots of responses here to your compelling story, Kara, and sharing this, and a lot of empathy as well as shared experiences in the chat.
Yes, leadership starts with vulnerability. And so if my story can inspire someone in some small way, I think that it is very appropriate and it's worthwhile sharing.
So many positive comments. Grading with gratitude. Ali Reef emphasizes, just as you did from Debbie's talk. She said, if I can say it enough, maybe I can manifest it into reality. Thank you for continuing to bring that to our attention, Ali.
Yes, definitely.
So we have from Elizabeth Robinson, again, a thank you for sharing, but finding that sending students a mid-course check-in that focuses upon their strengths she's noticed that can allow students to be motivated by the little things, and noticed it also allows them to be willing to reach out to her with areas of concern or questions. Shares a quote from Dave Kirpin, hidden in your weaknesses. Oops, and I lost it. Hidden in your weaknesses. I'm not going to be able to get back to it. I need to pull my my chat up.
Well, hidden in your weaknesses are your strengths. Every weakness has a corresponding strength. I think that is so powerful, and I am copying it and pasting it for myself to use later because I love that.
Sarah shares with us trying to help students draw on their strengths when they're in them, so that those teachable moments and catching those moments, writing them down, and then referring back to them in the challenging times. And Sarah, I think that is something that I'm going to write down too. I think that's a great opportunity, because immediacy and in the moment. And then one of my leaders always says that the positive slides right off like Teflon and the negative sticks like Velcro. Thank you, Dr. Denise Maxwell, for that one. So I think that writing it down and referring back to students when they're struggling, Sarah, is such an important piece for us to do.
I agree. And so I also love to point out some of those small things that students do that they don't realize are a huge strength. So just reaching out, I think, is an incredible strength because that puts you in a very vulnerable position. And so I love to remind students just how strong they are and bring out those strengths that they might not see in those little things that they do.
Jennifer reminds us that it can sometimes be heavy on us as instructors and student-facing professionals to read that heartfelt sentiment and the challenges students are facing. I mean, we talked before this Ed Talk gave a heads up, there could be some stuff that's hard to handle. Well, sometimes that happens when you go into your inbox and in the classroom, because it can get really heavy, even on us as those supporting students. So keeping that in mind, that culture of care for the student, but also for ourselves throughout the course and even after it's over. So thank you for sharing that with us, Jennifer. Denise shares that this was such an amazing reminder that everyone is carrying their life story with them. They may not all be capable of expressing what impact their life experience have had on their learning and daily interactions, but this allows us as instructors to be watchful of that and empathetic and focus on those strengths. She thanks you, Kara, for reminding us to always be mindful that everyone has a life story.
Yes, thank you. And also remember that we only have a limited capacity to handle stress. And so sometimes reminding students of those positives can be a way to start to make room for other things, because students can start to change their perspective on certain aspects of their life.
Kimberly sharing and reminding us, and that leadership starts with vulnerability, as you said, Kara. But I do want to just reiterate that sometimes the student is put on a pedestal, and they put us on a pedestal and think that we may not have the same struggles, or sharing our stories can help put us on that human level, and focus on the strengths and the goals rather than trying to fix, like you said, can help conquer those struggles. Thank you, Kimberly.
Definitely, those soft skills are very important, Teresa. I think everybody needs them at their core.
And Dr. Ellen Beatty, our ed talker from the launch, this series reminds us about strengths assessments, and I will share a copy of that in the chat here before we wrap up. But she asks her students to take a strengths assessment and offers that opportunity when challenges arise. Then she has that opportunity for them to help realize what they may have and need within them. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Beatty.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Kelly shares. The story is transformative to others. The humanness. I love this focus throughout the chats on the humanness and the strengths-based approach to help students and ourselves feel empowered. Focusing on those goals and those strengths, the pieces that we can control. Thank you, Dr. Handy, for bringing signals to our center here, sending emails through signals with positive feedback after a tough work week to give students a smile. So not just to, hey, are you okay? A proactive, positive feedback and checking in. Thank you for bringing that resource to the center in the chat.
Michael, I like your question about finding it easier to empathize with students and clients who are sharing. If I myself am struggling, now I will say there has been a time in my counseling career when I was dealing with some medical issues, and I found counseling as a reprieve to take the focus off me and put it on someone else. But when it comes to empathizing with others, sometimes I almost feel like if I haven't had the same situation, it's easier for me to empathize because I'm able to take myself out of this scenario and I don't have to necessarily account for how would I be feeling in this situation. And instead I can put myself in the shoes of students or clients and what I know of their background to really create a powerful empathy statement that is really specific to them. And one of the things that I was told, I look young, and when I was 23 and I started counseling, you can only imagine how young I looked. And so my clients would often say, you don't have enough life experience to help me. And after a session or two with my focus on empathetic interactions, that concern quickly went away and people would take back what they said at the beginning. So I always felt like empathy has such a huge power people.
Love that. Empathy has a power over people, man. it moves mountains, and all good things must come to an end. But I think ending on that positive note, as well as Yvonne emphasizing, the more positive we hear, the more chance it will be that it will stick. So empathy and positivity at the core here. Before we let you go, please do stick with us for just a moment longer so that you can watch our chat, or you can use the QR code on your screen to download your certificate of participation. And you'll also find there that survey that I referenced that Dr. Beatty shared with us in January. Our sessions are only just beginning, so please do stick with us as we are back almost every second Thursday from now until October. We do want to acknowledge the work of Dr. Martin Seligman for this inspiring series. Please come back and see us, though, and on April 8th, as Dr. Jackie Kiger will be your host, and I will share my story of proactive well-being for our youth. We want to thank you for joining us today, and a huge thank you again to Dr. Kara Metz for sharing with us today to inspire our next steps in supporting our students and each other. On behalf of Assistant Dean Dr. Denise Maxwell and UAGC's College of Arts and Sciences Department of Education and Liberal Arts, we wish you a safe and healthy, impactful March, and we will see you next month. Thank you, everyone.